The Derek Boogaard story is one of a professional hockey player. Most people will know that. They knew him as that. And they knew him as a tough guy. Until 3 years or so ago, 3.5 years ago, that's probably about all that most people knew about Derek. But the story is much deeper, much more complicated than that. Len Boogaard, Derek's father, joins us in studio tonight. Thank you very much for taking time to join us tonight.
No problem.
Good of you to be here. We want to try and create a chronology for the audience tonight so they can understand the entire story. Let me begin with this. Can you recall at what point the family came to realize that Derek had a problem, that there was something going on?
It wasn't until September of 2009 that we were able to piece together what was going on and realize that Derek had a problem.
Did you sense there was something before that?
There was during the month of August 2009. I would talk to Derek on the phone a number of times, and he would explain to me what his plans were. He wanted to go to BC. He wanted to build this log cabin, and he wanted to build cabins around it, etc. So, for the family to come out and visit him, etc. So, and then he would phone the next day, and he would just reiterate what he had told me the day previous. And
not remembering that he'd already told you.
Yeah, and talking to my other sons, they had the same things, that Derek was just repeating himself over the same stories over and over again. So, and my one son, Ryan, had noted on a couple of occasions that Derek's words were slurred, that he was incoherent, not making any sense whatsoever.
Did you put two and two together at that point, Len, and deduce that he'd been concussed?
No.
What did you suspect was going on?
I didn't have any idea as to what was going on. It wasn't until I had a conversation with Aaron, that Aaron would have been in mid-September, that I had a conversation with Aaron, and Aaron explained to me what was going on.
So what did Aaron say at that point? Were we talking about drinking? Were we talking about prescription drugs? Or were we just
we're talking about pills.
Just about the pills.
About pills. Basically what had happened was, according to Aaron, was that Derek had shoulder surgery and nasal surgery in April of 2009. And during that time frame, he was prescribed a number of opiates and painkillers, etc. And so he was, the doctor stopped giving him that medication in April. And by that time, Derek was addicted to those painkillers. So he went to an ex-teammate, a former teammate, who was residing in New York. And Derek would send money to that teammate, and the teammate in turn would mail Derek prescription pills. Oxy was what he was mailing back. Yes.
Yeah. Who knew? So how many people knew that Derek had an issue? Obviously he was being prescribed those drugs, and he was also buying them on the side. But how many people knew he had an issue with those drugs?
Very few. Derek was very tight-lipped, and he kept it pretty much to himself. So the only one that really knew what was going on would be Aaron. And Jeremy Clark, in all likelihood, who was his trainer.
To the best of your knowledge, did he have an issue with alcohol or with recreational drugs prior to that?
No, he did have issues with alcohol, that he would binge drink, etc. So,
but not that uncommon for a young man, not that uncommon necessarily for a hockey player.
No,
something you don't like, but not something you're really overly concerned with.
Well, what Derek would always say, his pat phrase was, "Don't worry about it, Dad. It's the lifestyle. It's the lifestyle."
Mm.
So what happens, Len? So you find out your son from his brother that your son has a prescription drug issue, an opiates issue. The alarm, presumably, you're a parent. You sound the alarm bell. You think, okay, we got to do something about this. How do you sound that alarm? How does that alarm get sounded, and then what happens?
I got a hold of Derek's agent, Ron Salser, and I told him what was taking place, etc. And Salser made the appropriate arrangements through the Wild and through the substance abuse program.
So the NHL has a substance abuse program. People on this listening to this show have heard about it before. It operates quietly and discreetly. That's the idea, that players can enter it when they have a problem, or they can be, and there's a series of steps in terms of kind of what stage they're at. So at that point, does Derek enter the substance abuse program? Is that what happened?
He does.
And what happened then?
He entered the program on September the 23rd, 2009, and he was admitted to a facility in California, in Malibu, called the Canyon. So and he spent 2 weeks at that facility.
Now, I know a little bit about the Canyon because I did Jordan Tutu's book, and he was there for 5 weeks, coming because of a drinking problem, which he beat in the end, but through the same. And I know how he was scooped up and got on a plane, didn't know where he was going, and they took him to the Canyon and locked him in a detox room and all of that stuff. 2 weeks is not long enough to be in a program like that, for sure. But how did he end up being there and then being out of that program so quickly?
I have no idea. It took me by surprise as well. I thought, doing what I had done and, watching other people go into these programs, et cetera, that they were 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks in duration. And then Derek was in there for 2 weeks. It didn't make any sense to me.
So he's back out, yeah.
Do you think it mattered that the time of the year that he went in there? He gets out October 12th. The hockey season is basically just starting.
I have no idea.
At the time he was admitted, documentation obtained from that center, the Canyon, showed he was taking 8 to 9 tabs of Oxycontin, 10 tabs of Percocet, 10 tabs of Vicodin, and 3 tabs of Ambien, and allegedly drinking 3 times a week, too.
That's correct.
That's an extraordinary amount of drugs. I think anybody would understand that, even if they have no knowledge of what one of these pills can do. Did you talk to anybody did the family talk to anybody at the center to try and get a sense as to how serious the problem was?
My son Ryan flew out with Derek. He flew from Regina, and he escorted Derek to the facility. So Ryan briefly spoke to Dr. Lewis of the substance abuse program, et cetera. So, but like you've indicated, that you've alluded to, that it's pretty tight-lipped, pretty secretive of a.
It is.
So
what happened after he got out? Did he just go back to the team? Went back, so he's playing for the Minnesota Wild at this point. He goes back to the team.
He on October the 9th, he signed an aftercare agreement, and basically it spells out that he's to refrain from pain medication, opiates, etc. So he has to attend counseling sessions. He's got a 12-step program that he's got to do
3 times a week.
And he's not allowed to be in facilities. He's not allowed to be in strip clubs or massage parlors along those lines, et cetera.
How long then was it before, to your knowledge, best of your knowledge, how long was it before he broke that aftercare agreement?
He was discharged on the 12th. He flew back to Minnesota on the 13th. He joined the Wild. And on the 15th, there was a concern raised about his use of Ambien.
So right away?
Right away, 2 days, 3 days.
Now, what's supposed to happen then?
Well, according to the documentation from the substance abuse program, et cetera, that, if Derek is in violation, or if you're in violation of your aftercare agreement, that they can suspend and revoke and they can suspend you, like I said, and put you back into rehab, et cetera. So
yeah, it's not the player's option, right? That if once you sign into that program, if you violate it, there is a series of stages which involve suspensions without pay, mandatory treatment. There's a whole bunch of things that are laid out there. That didn't
supposedly it's laid out.
It's laid out,
but it's not enforced.
He was not suspended, right?
No, none of it was enforced.
Were the Wild and the National Hockey League both apprised and aware of what had happened over those few weeks? His admission into the program, and then when he got out, and then the positive tests and the awareness that he was on Ambien shortly thereafter.
Well, there were concerns about him being on Ambien. There was nothing, there were no tests taken showing that he was failing.
There was a positive drug test in December, though, right?
There were a bunch of positive drug tests, but they had to do with sleep aids that he was taking. He was taking Sudafed and Benadryl, and those tests were coming back as abnormal, with positive readings. So apparently, from these dosages, impairment sets on at 60 nanograms per milliliter. Derek's readings were 400, 500, 600.
Oh, my God.
Things like Benadryl, right?
Yeah, Benadryl, Sudafed, et cetera.
So Len, at what point should the red flag have been raised?
On October the 15th, as far as I'm concerned.
So the way the program is supposed to work, and the people who understood that Derek had been so someone would have known enough at that point to say, hang on a second, we have a problem here. We have a guy who was in the substance program. We think he might have violated it. We have to go to the next stage here.
It was the program doctors that got a hold of him and said, "Hey, what are you doing? There's a concern about Ambien."
And so what happened? So what? How does that conversation end?
I have no idea. I have documentation from the doctors, but it's basically in point form, so there's not a lot of detail to it.
Can I ask you, just for clarity, those doctors, are we talking about aftercare physicians associated with the Canyons, the program that he was in? Are we talking about Wild doctors, NHL appointed physicians? Who are we talking about?
Well, the NHL, like I said, and the NHLPA have the substance abuse program.
Right.
And there's two doctors. One is appointed by the National Hockey League, and that would be Dr. Lewis. And then the one for the Players Association that represents the Players Association is Dr. Shaw. So they're the two gentlemen that made the program. They started the program in 1996, so they're responsible for the program.
I just want to point, as an aside here, like people listening to you, again, you have done much of this investigation yourself. You are RCMP, retired RCMP. You've set out. So when we start talking about these dates and these pieces of information and about prescription records and things like that, these are the results of your own investigation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the substance abuse. So the substance abuse program is alerted. There are alarms go off to a degree, but at any point, is the next step threatened? Is it, obviously it isn't taken. He's not suspended. He's not suspended without pay. They don't stage him, as they say, move him from one stage to another. How far did it ever go in terms of the substance abuse program? For somebody saying, "Hang on, we have to stop. You have violated your aftercare agreement. These are the consequences." Was that conversation even held, as far as you know?
No, because what happened after Derek was released, there were a number of incidents that he was in violation that are documented, where he was in violation of his aftercare agreement. He refused to test. He was missing tests. They would ask him where he was. How come he missed a test? And he would lie to them, saying that he was over here when in fact he wasn't, etc. So he was missing counseling sessions. He was just resistant to the entire program, etc.
And all of those things should have been triggers, though, shouldn't they?
Well, you would think so. And what the doctors did, they downloaded their responsibility onto Derek's friend and player agent. And so they would go to him and said, "Well, here, you talk to Derek about this stuff, etc." So, but all that did was create a rift between Derek and the agent. So near the end, I don't think they had contact with each other when Derek went to New York.
Now, during this period, Derek is, and through the last months of his life has access to a pharmacy full of drugs.
That's correct.
Where were those drugs coming from?
Because it started back in 2008.
Okay, let's start there.
2008. It was in October of 2008 that Derek had gotten into a fight with Wade Belak, and he lost a tooth. So he went to one of the Wild dentists, and they started procedures on him. And over the course of a month, Derek received 8 prescriptions for hydrocodone or Vicodin, and a total approximately 195 pills in that 1 month period. So
that number, okay, that's a big number.
Well, they were coming from various sources, though.
That's okay. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry.
And they were coming from various sources. So the dentist was prescribing Derek with hydrocodone. They went on to a road trip into San Jose, and Derek saw one of the team doctors of the Sharks, and that doctor prescribed Derek with 40 pills, etc. So, but I have no documentation to support why Derek got those pills. And that particular doctor was under probation at the time. He had been charged by the medical board and put on probation by the California Medical Board because he was writing false prescriptions to friends and athletes under fictitious names, etc. So,
was this just for clarity again, Len? This doctor was associated with the Wild?
No, he's a team He's a team doctor for the San Jose Sharks.
Okay,
and the Wild were on a road trip out.
Okay, gotcha now.
And that's.
But the picture you get from this, Len, and again, same thing reading John Branch's book about this, is that you could go to anybody, any team doctor, you go to, I'm not going to implicate everybody here, but the sense that you could go to a team doctor and say, look, I banged up my shoulder last night, and someone would hand you pills. There doesn't seem to be any kind of cross-referencing. There doesn't seem to be any communication. There's no sense that somebody might have had never mind that somebody might have had an addiction issue. The pills seem to be flowing incredibly freely for, any complaint almost. It's like, didn't anybody talk to anybody else?
Not from what I can gather. It's like there was an incident. Well, there were several incidents from after Derek, after the prescriptions for his tooth, between December and February of 2009, 2010. Derek got another 10 prescriptions of hydrocodone. But the way it's in some of these instances too, they have very specialists. Team doctors. So some of them are orthopedic surgeons and some of them are for cardiovascular, et cetera. So the orthopedic surgeons or the orthopedic doctors would give Derek a prescription, for maybe 5 or 6 hydrocodone, and they would have it documented on the team records. But there were also 2 general practitioners that were on the wild, and they would write Derek pills, prescriptions for 30 pills, and there's never any documentations as to why they were prescribing this to him.
And even after he's been in the substance abuse program.
No,
right?
this is
before.
This
right?
is just prior. This is leading up to.
Okay, but after he's in the substance, I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit here, but
Okay.
But we can go back. After he's in the substance abuse program, does something pop up when you're a team doctor and a guy asks you for pills, saying, "Hang on a second, this guy's in the substance abuse program"?
The only documented instance that I have of that the doctors were aware of it, was a doctor that started prescribing Derek with Ambien.
Which is a sleeping pill,
Which
right?
is a sleep aid, yeah.
Who was that doctor?
Dr. Wiseman.
And he is he a family physician, somebody that Derek ran into, or does
No,
he have a
he's a
relationship with one of the teams?
Yeah, no, he works he's a team doctor for the New York Rangers,
Okay.
and he deals with the cardiovascular stuff, so.
So there was a note, like at some point it was noted that he was giving pills to somebody?
On December the 14th, Dr. Wiseman phoned Derek, and he wanted to know how Derek was doing because Derek had sustained that concussion December the 9th in Ottawa with Kartner. So Derek was complaining to Dr. Wiseman about insomnia. So, and then in the notes that Dr. Wiseman has, it says that he was aware that Derek has an Ambien, prior history of Ambien abuse. And as a result, he got a hold of Dr. Lewis from the substance abuse program. And they sat down, or they conversed, and they decided that they should put Derek on something called Restorol. So that was the first indication I had, that the doctor was aware that Derek wasn't supposed to be on certain medications.
Okay. But is that the first and only one, or did it start to pop up? Because I know Derek also eventually found alternate sources for drugs.
That was the only documentation pertaining to, that the doctors were aware of it.
And there certainly were instances after he had gone into the substance abuse program that he was prescribed with opiates, right?
Yes. He was in a fight in October of 2009 with Colton Orr, and then he lost a tooth there as well. And that's when he started to see Dr. Esposito. So I believe it was October the 26th that Derek saw Dr. Esposito for the first time. And Dr. Esposito prescribed him with hydrocodone. So in the documents that I had obtained, the pharmacy records show that Derek paid out of pocket for this prescription.
Why would you pay it out of pocket?
Well, you shouldn't have to. And he never did for all the other prescriptions that he received.
Was there an explanation? Did you uncover an explanation for that?
Well, I've discussed this with the DEA, and they're of the opinion as well that Derek was trying to hide it, because what the NHLPA and the NHL have an insurance program. So, of course, the doctors or the pharmacies, they submit their bills to the insurance program. So,
Right.
of course,
So there'd be an ongoing record.
Right. So, but if Derek were to pay cash, then
No
it wouldn't
record.
be documented. So, and that was, our thinking that, he's doesn't want anybody to know.
But based on what you're telling me and based on what you have been able to piece together here, it seems clear that the Players Association and the National Hockey League had numerous pieces of evidence to suggest that there was a problem, an ongoing problem. And I'm not hearing that they dealt with this problem, addressed it. It didn't even address it or even acknowledge it.
It wasn't the NHL and the NHLPA per se. So because the only two that are running the program are Dr. Shaw and Dr. Lewis. So they were the only ones that would be cognizant of what was going on.
Wouldn't they report because they were assigned by those? They don't report.
No.
No, so there's confidentiality at that level.
Confidentiality, yeah.